Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the Meta Cafe. Grab your cup of coffee, your tea, sit back and enjoy some talk about astrology, human design, the gene keys, or whatever else comes up. I'm contacting you all this morning from the state of Alaska, or at least it feels like that's where I've been transported as my outer world is looking beautiful and white and very, very snowy. And I'm telling you, this is probably the most snow I've seen here in 10 plus years. At least, I mean, I've lived on this island now for 11 years. So I'm thinking it was maybe the year after we moved in that we had a significant snowfall. But we've had significant snowfalls. This is like the third or fourth significant snowfall. It started snowing yesterday afternoon about noonish, maybe a little bit earlier than that. And it hasn't stopped. It's still snowing and it's crazy. I don't know if the trees are going to survive this one. And then if rain comes on top of it, we're going to have a big mess. So everybody pray for the Pacific Northwest. We are not used to this. We are wimps, right? I don't even think we have enough snowplows in the in the whole state to keep up with this kind of mess. So anyway, it's pretty funny. My husband did not go to work this morning, so I don't have to worry about that. In fact, I think about probably 2/3 of the staff there wasn't able to get in. They come from, areas where they would, have to go through really dangerous hills and things like that. So at any rate, I had no excuses to get out of working today. So here I am with you guys and sharing what is going on in the sky today. And let's just dive in, right? Well, first of all, I want to know, how did everybody feel about angel readings yesterday? I absolutely adore Trudy, and it was just so much fun having her get to talk with all of you. And then after we were done with the show, she said, oh my gosh, I had so much fun doing that. But she felt a little bit like a fish out of water because she's so used to having someone in front of her when she's talking, or, she's talking directly to that person and not through a third person, like I was the mediator, if you will, yesterday. So what we decided to do is something really exciting. And that is, later in March sometime, we will host a Zoom webinar type of situation where you all can be there live on camera and with your sound, and she can have direct access to do angel readings with all of you during that time. I will keep you posted on the date. She was really excited about that. She's definitely not into tech. So the fact that she, realized, wow, this is like opening up a whole new world for me, she was really excited to do that. So be on the lookout for that information coming up soon. So what is going on today? Well, the moon is in the last several degrees of Taurus. And at this point, then we are still looking at it, aspecting the planets that are in Capricorn. And in fact, today we see it trining both Saturn and Pluto. And that's a smooth flow of energy, right? That makes it nice and easy, except that we're talking about Saturn, Lord of Karma, and Pluto, the master of the underworld. And so today may be a deep dive into some of the more psychological aspects of ourselves. It may be our momentary bleeping deep dive into maybe some emotional things. If not, maybe we are smoothly moving through this, maybe reminiscing about the past, maybe looking for connections between who we are now and who we were then. Those kinds of things can be very opportune, especially when another big aspect like Mars conjuncting Uranus is occurring today. That by far and away takes over everything. So that will happen later in the day. It will be exact for us on the West Coast, somewhere around 11 o'clock this evening. And for you all on the East Coast, then it means it's bright and early, first thing in the morning. You'll be asleep when it becomes exact. But as you all know, and as I have taught you many times over, that aspects that are occurring don't occur just at the moment of exactitude. Now, things do happen when it becomes exact, but there is that time where it's moving in. It's coming to a closer conjunction or a closer square, whatever that aspect is going to be. And you're already feeling it, right? You're already experiencing it. And then we have the exact time, and then we have the separating aspect, right? So it is a continuum of energy. It isn't just one moment in time, although that's the best way that we have as astrologers to look at it, is that right now, let's see, Mars is sitting at 28 degrees, 46 minutes of Aries, and Uranus is at 29 degrees, 11 minutes. Ooh, that's an 11-11. That's interesting. So we have an Eris not far behind, 23 degrees. So we have some real disruptive sort of energy out there at play for us today. On top of that, the moon has moved into its square, its first square with the sun, which we call the first quarter moon. And as we have learned here in the Meta Cafe, it is also the first crisis point that we reach after the new moon. And we call this the crisis of action, as in now maybe there's something in your outer world that is a sticking point to whatever it was that your intentions were, and that it can create a block maybe, or a fear gets triggered about whatever it is your intention was last week with that new moon. And the new moon at that point was in Aquarius. So we were stepping outside of our comfort zone a bit, right? We were being innovative, we were being inventive, and maybe a bit eccentric or unique, maybe even a little bit daring in, expressing parts of ourselves that we hadn't expressed. And now we get to that first square where maybe some chance comment that someone makes about what it is you're doing disturbs your peace, or perhaps something happens, and your mind, which is the culprit to all of this stuff, tells you that there's a block and maybe you're not meant to do this, et cetera, et cetera. So we want to be very careful about that. So I want to say good morning to everybody, and then I'll come back to the astrology. And good morning. Are you in Bulgaria today, or are you in England? She says, Zoom Angel Speak sounds like a fantastic idea. It was lovely, wasn't it? Oh my gosh. She's such a beautiful lady. And, the person who referred her to me was Anea. She is the owner of Angel Heart Radio. And so every month I appear on Angel Heart Radio with Annette McCoy talking about astrology. And Anea and I go back, several years actually. And she referred her friend Trudy to me, and that was fantastic connection. So Mimi, good morning. It was a lovely show. I think so too. Terry telling me that Washington State's under an emergency. Yes, it is. Rebecca, good morning. She's super excited. Actually, it's my good morning to you, but your evening, right? Lynn, good morning. Love the angel readings. Michelle Brooks, good morning to you. And wow, all that snow, and yet you have internet. Isn't that amazing? So knock on wood that it stays, right? Electricity, internet, we have all of that. Of course, I have broadband cable internet, so definitely more stable. Good morning, Vanita. And Mimi says, your photos are beautiful. I have this wedding cake on my front porch. It looks so funny, right? That my table there. And I would bet there's more snow than what it's actually showing, because that's on my deck and it's sort of protected there. So I don't know what the real totals are. Debbie Hedden, good morning to you as well. So coffee. Good morning, Michelle Gay. Good morning, Roman. I love you too. Asa, good morning. It was beautiful energy and much love felt. And anyway, so let's go on and see what else we might expect today. So I'm really fascinated by the whole Mars conjunct Uranus, because there are surprises embedded in this one. For example, imagine my surprise this morning waking up and seeing it's still snowing and that there's several inches of snow. Although that's not exactly the kind of surprises that, I'm really thinking of. I'm thinking that there are big surprises that come when we are in the process of trying to make things happen. So if you've got a project you're working on, a job you're trying to get, a relationship you're trying to mend, or money you're trying to make, or any number of things, and you feel yourself sort of pushing it, right? You're trying to push it, you're trying to make it happen. Well, the conjunction of these two planets can make it even more overpowering for you to want to make it happen. And what have I said to everybody here in the morning is that it's not our job to push. It is our job to follow the steps in front of us, but not to push. And when we try to push, things can happen and snap like that. The unexpected happens, and that's Mars conjunct Uranus. It is also Mars conjunct Uranus to unstick us, meaning if you find yourself in a sticking point where you haven't been able to see a path forward, or everything that you've been doing sort of gets blocked, then this particular conjunction can make things just break open and go, like the dam bursts and everything comes flowing together. So here you're meant to let go of being stuck and let in the energy of change. There is an experimental, daring boldness to this particular energy, and I would caution everybody to be so careful, because this is also an aspect that can bring on accidents or unexpected challenges, right, to your health, to your livelihood, to your life if you're not careful, right? Mars rules metal. Our cars are mostly made of metal. Knives are made of metal. Guns made of metal. And Uranus is a rebel and does things that we least expect. So things can get out of control very easily. So be careful. Dial back the experimental sort of energy, that bold energy. Dial it back a little. For example, if you know, for all of us here in Washington, if you've not gone skiing in a very long time or snowboarding ever in your life, and you choose today to go out and do that for the first time, watch for the trees, right? Don't overdo it. Be safe, be safe, be safe. This is a day to be very uber safe and cautious. Also, watch out for rash behavior, not only in yourself, but in other people. So for all of those people that don't tune in the morning to the Meta Cafe, they aren't in the know, and they can be very unaware of what these pressures are that are building up and how it is that their behavior can be affected by those transits. So you all understand this. So watch your own rash behaviors. Remember, don't knee jerk, right? Don't react. Breathe first, then take action. Don't just gut check something. There is, good morning, April. It's good to see you out there this morning. There is also rebellion in the air, as we are all kind of chomping at the bit and wanting to break free from whatever the chains are that have bound us. And, you know, I was telling my husband the other day that I was beginning to feel like I understood what cabin fever is, because even though I enjoy being sort of a hermit on my little island here and a bit of a recluse, I really don't enjoy it when I want to go out and I can't, right? Or I'm, worried that if I get out there on the roads, I'm going to, slide off a cliff over here. So for me, that cabin fever feeling is sort of building up, and then it's not making it any better that I look outside and there's even more snow now, right? It makes you feel more stuck, and then your actions want to take on more of the extreme rashness. So we want to be very careful. We're going to feel like breaking free. We will break free, but we can do that in a stepwise fashion. Be super conscious of your surroundings right now. Super conscious, because accident awareness, right? If you pick up that knife, don't turn your head and look at the news broadcast while you're chopping up something, because you're likely going to miss and hit your fingers, right? Don't do that. This is a great time for you to assert your individuality into the world. So whatever it is that is uniquely you, whatever it is that you really enjoy, is a time now for you to assert that out into the world. Those are the kinds of things that are really exciting about this kind of transit. And, likely this is today and tomorrow in its most intense, and then it wanes because later in the week on Valentine's Day, so Thursday, Mars then moves into Taurus. It'll be out of Aries, the sign it rules, and it will be into Venus's territory. Venus rules the sign Taurus. And as Mars begins to move through that sign, fundamentally, there's a shift in all of the energy. And it is a dynamic I will speak to on Thursday, maybe, or I'm actually thinking about writing an article about it, because I'm really looking at Mars as sort of the harbinger of what's to come when Uranus moves into Taurus March 6th. So we have, let's see, that's really only about a month away, a little less than a month away. And remember, back in May, we had Uranus move into Taurus briefly. Then it went retrograde and got back into Aries. Like, we weren't quite done with all of the Aries rebellion and upset. So now we're back into that for a while. And then in March, we are going to move that planet into Taurus. So here's what I think about that. Mars will begin to sort of take action in the financial markets. Up until now, the financial markets have been pretty good. And I told you that would be the case up until about March or so, when I see that the markets will begin to take hits, whether it's the stock market, the banking industry, mortgages, any number of ways that suddenly there can be a downturn as the markets begin to course correct. So with Mars moving into Taurus later this week, we may begin to see that, as it sort of is the I think of Mars as sort of the stirrer of the pot, right? The discontent starts to come to the surface, or the issues that were hidden by, softer transits begin to come up to the surface. And, Mars wants to take action on these things. And so it's a possibility that we start to see a turnaround, a down turnaround in those markets. So everybody just be prepared. Do not go into fear. It isn't about that. It is about being very cautious now. Remember at the beginning of the year when I did the astrology for 2019, and I mentioned the word conservatism, stewardship, and resourcefulness, and think sustainability. So with the excitement of Mars and Uranus conjuncting, don't take that as a sign that all is going to be well forever and make big jumps into things, because you might be surprised as we start heading further into March and then into April, when the three big outer planets, Jupiter, Saturn, and Uranus, change direction. Saturn, Pluto, and Jupiter turn retrograde. So be cautious, but be optimistic too. I mean, there's a point at which, you're walking down that middle line. You're cautiously optimistic, right? You are taking calculated risks, right? Calculated means you're deliberately moving into something, and you know what the risks are, right? You've done the weighing of the scales, right? So you know that how much of a risk you can take or how much you can gamble, and then you take those steps, but you don't bet the whole farm. I hope you guys are getting my meaning here. Let's see what people are saying out here for a moment. Good. April says we get cabin fever with rain, fog, and cloudy, gloomy days. Oh, yes. But you see, we're used to those cloudy, gloomy, rainy days, and I have no problem going out in the rain. But I don't know. When I was I want to say I was 4 years old, I lived in Southern California. And every Christmas time, we would go up to Big Bear or Lake Arrowhead, which was up in the mountains, and for Christmas. And maybe it was, for just a few days. And one year we went up, and it started snowing very badly. And we didn't put chains on, and the car slid out from under my dad's control, and the front end of the car was dangling over the edge of the cliff. And they didn't let me out of the car. They made me stay in the car. They felt, I guess, that I was safer in the car, but I had to sit there in the front seat of this car waiting for the tow truck to come and pull us back. And, at 4, I was quite canny. I knew. I knew this is dangerous. And ever since that point, snow and me are sort of like, I like to stand and watch it, or sit in my house and watch it, but not be out in it. I really start to freak out. And I know it's from that. And even though I know it's from that, I still can't stop that feeling inside that, I'm going to die. So, yeah. Oh, my God is right. Rebecca says, what's the difference between rebellion and Aries versus Aquarius? Great question. Rebellion in Aries is a little more dare I say this, juvenile, immature. And it is, it's lovely energy, don't get me wrong. It will dare to go where others won't go. And it will take those steps sometimes in reaction to other things. And if you're doing it that way, then of course you've got a 50-50 chance that it's going to work out and a 50-50 chance that it isn't. But Aries doesn't care, right? They are moving through their life with the experiences and the experiment. When we get to Aquarius, it's more experimental, meaning it has more deliberateness to it. There's an inventiveness to Aquarius energy, and it is linked to Uranus. In the more modern day, Uranus is the ruler of Aquarius, where in the older days, before 1750 or so, when we discovered Uranus, Saturn was the ruler of Aquarius. So we do have some caution in a little bit of caution there with Aquarius that we don't have in Aries. And yet there's still that inventiveness. And it's like, okay, if I unplug this and plug it over here, what happens? It blows up. Oops. Well, then next, that's one more way that I know that this isn't going to work. So I go back to the drawing board. Aries is more deliberate, or is more like the fool, right? I'm just going to go forth and do. And if it blows up, okay. And Aquarius is more like, I'm going to deliberately do this, cautiously doing this, and then I'm going to, have to redo it possibly, and I'm okay with that too. So the scientific method versus the I'm just going to go out and do method, the 2-year-old method. But we need both, right? We need people that are bold, that are going to go out there and, tear up the ground ahead of us, that are going to be the explorers and the adventurers who are going to dare to do that, where Aquarius now is more deliberately putting into practice some of the experiments that have succeeded and reworking the experiments that did not. I hope that helps. Great explanation. Thank you. You're very welcome. Colleen says, that's scary. I have had crazy snow driving experiences. You don't shake that. I'm trying to get people to cancel me walking dogs today because of the ice. Oh my goodness. Yeah. Ice is almost worse, right? I mean, you could be walking along just fine gingerly, and next thing you know, shoot, you are flat on your back. So bad, bad, bad. Colleen, we have snow and ice storm. I think it's across the whole of the country. Good morning, Diane Pegram. She said cabin fever in the Midwest continues as another ice storm is due to hit tonight. Talk about energies moving. Well, hello. The storm that we're having now will be moving your way too. So you probably have more as well. Vanita, sounds like a good day to stay off the roads. Absolutely. Anne says she's in Bulgaria, but her little sister Helen is back in the UK. Well, I hope she's listening to us this morning. Good morning, if so, Helen. And I think that's it for the new. Good morning, Debbie TT. And I think I have said hello to everybody now so far. So good. So anyway, there is, let's see, moving on a bit. Oh, I know what I wanted to do. 2 things. One, I wanted to remind myself where Mars was going to be in terms of this week is in the gate 3. So the gate 3 in your human design is sitting way down here. Let me see if I have my sample human design chart here handy dandy. I'm sure I do. It's probably not the correct date, but here we go. So we have the gate 3 up here on the sacral, or down here on the sacral, right there in the middle. And right now we'll have had Mars and Uranus sitting here. And what's that? Gate 60 is the south node, I believe. Yep, the south node. And so they're forming the change channel here. This is called the channel of mutation. So what we see in this dynamic between Mars Uranus at gate 30 and the south node at gate 60 is a sort of reckoning, if you will, taking the best from all of the gifts and talents that we all have, and then using that in a way to evolve and mutate. It's the channel of mutation. Another word for mutation is evolution. Another word for evolution is change. So we have this energy, and another word that we could use is transformation. So we have some really good descriptive words about what is in the sort of underpinnings here of this particular Mars-Uranus conjunction and its connection to the South Node, and that is about an evolutionary leap. So bigger picture, right? That's the bigger picture. But in your own particular life, you are also going through an evolutionary leap. You're not apart from, the energy. So you personally, because Mars is a personal planet, it's on the inner solar system. So you too are also having to look at where are you stuck and where do you need to make change? Where do you need to connect with that energy of evolution? Whether that is in the consciousness, whether that is in your actions, but actually it's all born out of consciousness. But it's interesting because that channel connects the sacral and the root center. The root center, remember, is the energy of impulse, right? The impulse to go out into the world, to start something, to move forward, right? To engage the emotions on one side, to engage your thriving on the other side, to engage your sacral above it. And then the sacral sustains the energy long enough for us to make these changes. So all in all, this is all about where are we evolving to and what part do you play in that? Because you all do. We're evolving our consciousness through having more conscious relationships. We are evolving our world consciousness. We are evolving our national consciousness. And all of these things are evolving along those lines where we are healing separation, where we are creating unity, where we are going back to a point in time where we valued one another, where we valued different things than what it seems like we've been valuing in the outer world right now. So there's a lot of change engaged here. And with Saturn at gate 54, which was the gate of ambition, in its highest form, it is ascension. So we are being primed to move up the ladder, right? We're moving up that ladder. And some of you are kicking and screaming, right? Sometimes I feel like I'm kicking and screaming. Other times I feel like, wow, let's just go and get this done, right? I'm ready. Let's do it. So things are moving, things are shifting, and Mars and Uranus are showing us that the nature of the shift actually is coming from deep within your DNA. Remember, gate 3 and gate 60, in some respects, they form a channel that's evolution that's really out of your control. It is encoded, if you will, in your DNA, in our DNA, and in the DNA, if you will, of the entire universe. And so we are sort of moving with the music of the spheres in this dance that is causing evolution, right? And it's just plainly right there in your human design chart. So it's nice to see that. And it is also sort of an interesting journey as, we see different levels of having attained that evolution of consciousness, right? So we see the shadow, we see the gift, and we see the siddhi, right, in some very rare individuals. So I like that. In fact, let's see, where's my cheat sheet here? 3, yeah, it is. It's innovation in its gift, right? So chaos in the lowest, the shadow is chaos. And you can imagine, right, when you are in the midst of a huge evolutionary shift, you can imagine easily, I'm sure, that chaos ensues, right? Chaos. I would say the world has been in chaos. And we're moving toward innovation, creating new streams of consciousness, or creating with new streams of consciousness. And ultimately, we end up in the highest expression, which is innocence. And maybe one day we'll go deeper into that word because that's a loaded word if you ask me. Innocence. Gate 60, on the other hand, where the south node is about justice. You see the searching for justice everywhere right now, everywhere, at least here in the US. I don't know how that might play out in the other realms around the world, but I would bet if you look closely, you will see justice being played out in your world. That's the highest expression. But the lowest expression is limitation. So we have to transcend limitation first in our reaching up to the next level, which is realism. And then the next level after that becomes justice. So we're moving through these energies, evolving our consciousness. Rebecca says, sounds really empowering to say the least. It is. It really is. There's some days though when something that triggers me or I, find myself back in running old tapes in my mind. I'm like, why? To me, when I think of empowerment, I think I'm moving past it. But there are times that we, backslide. And when we think of the nature of change, it often is that way: 2 steps forward and then 1 step back, but you're still a step forward, right? So the step forward is what we're always looking for. The empowerment takes us on that step forward. So that is a great observation there. Rebecca, Natasha, good morning to you. You're out of school today. I saw that Cedro Woolley was closed down. Good morning, all. Being a snowy world, I am taking the hint from Mother Earth and work on my house and myself, as both of our energies are being asked to shift. Time to work on those stagnant corners. I think I will put music on to enjoy the engagement a bit more. Great idea. Did I tell you guys that my husband got a gift certificate from Amazon for Christmas, or for something, I don't remember what. We decided to buy an Echo Dot, which is an Alexa piece of technology. Oh my God, what fun. I decided, if you decide you want to hear a song that you haven't heard, you just say, Alexa, play blank, and she'll just play whatever it is. It is so much fun. Technology. Anyway, side note. So yeah, put on music. If you have an Echo Dot, ask Alexa to play some of your favorite songs from the past. You can also give her a genre of music to play. If you want to just say play new age music or play country western, she'll pick it from Amazon Music and play it for you. Oops, she heard me. She's out there playing music. She heard me. So Colleen says, oh yes, I recently had a very hard fall. Oh no. So hard, even though I landed on my butt, I got a mild concussion. Oh dear, you need to get ice cleats. I mean, really, isn't that funny? Good morning, Diane Ballgard. We haven't seen you in a few days. That's great to see you. So, God, Colleen, take it easy out there, right? I know dogs still need walking, but dog walkers need to be safe too. Maybe, gosh, I don't even know what you do with that because we don't necessarily get ice. This will all turn to slush. I don't know. Just take it easy, right? Just be safe out there. The last thing you need is to break up your head, right? And fall backwards and hit your head or, exacerbate your concussion. That's not fun at all. Interesting because, a lot of people are going so much for global warming. And I chuckle every time I hear people saying that because, global warming is a bit of a misnomer because, yes, one of the most obvious symptoms is that of warming temperatures, more drought, more heat. But what people don't understand, it's not just the heat, it's about the extremes, the extreme expressions in the weather. So extreme amounts of snowfall, extreme winds, extreme drought, extreme heat. So it's not just about the heat. So global warming, I think, makes people kind of go, well, wait a minute, it's 50 below here in Michigan. What the hell? But it isn't just about the warming. It's about the extremes, right? So keep that in mind. Lynn, snowy and icy here as well. I picked us a card today from Rosie's Wisdom Keepers Oracle. Gene Key 51, shock and awe. Gift of initiative, shadow, agitation, the Siddhi awakening, info to follow. Awesome. That's actually a great card for us to remember because 51 is shock in the lowest expression. It's the shock that leads us to go on the path to spiritual healing. It actually, let me show you where it sits in your human design chart. Did I put that away again? Where did I put it? Well, it sits actually on the will center. Right over here. Here's the will center. And gate 51, my tip of my pen is on it. And it will move energy from the ego center onto the soul center, right? So this is part of the mystical journey that we as humans go on. And gate 51, even though there's not a planet sitting here, the reminder is Mars and Uranus together can create shock. That's sort of their hallmark. And literally, this kind of setup can only happen every 2 years. It takes Mars 2 years to completely go around the zodiac. So we haven't had a Mars-Uranus conjunction in 2 years, maybe even a little bit longer this time because last year Mars had its retrograde. So it's been a while. And if I went and looked it up again, I bet we'd find that were some pretty shocking things that might have happened during those days. Let's see, we never had snow with rain until this year. Then the temperatures crashed. All winter has been extreme. One day -4, the next day 56. Exactly my point, right? It is those wild swings in temperatures that characterize global warming, not just the heat. And it is, it is, if you think of Mother Earth as a sentient being, and I learned this in science class of all places. It was actually a biology class that I was taking back in the 90s when I was in college. That if you think of Mother Earth as a sentient being, and by the way, those were not the words they used, but I went there. And as a sentient being, she has, like you do in your own body, a series of safeguards, or what is the word I'm trying to think of? They are feedback systems, feedback mechanisms that are attempting to keep a stasis, right? Trying to keep things in balance. So for example, when you get sick, your body heats up to kill the germs, and you begin to sweat or shiver as a way to balance that heat, right? To sort of get rid of some of that heat. So Mother Earth is the same way. She's a sentient being. And so what she has in her is the system of negative feedbacks and positive feedbacks that seek balance, that seek to create equilibrium out of all of the systems around the Earth. So when we have a huge snowstorm here, then there's likely heat somewhere else on the planet that's attempting to release that and bring the Earth back into equilibrium, just like in your own body. These things are always happening. So it's when you're hungry and you don't have food to put in your mouth, your cells start releasing sugar so that your brain and your heart and your organs have energy. Same thing with Mother Earth, right? It's all very, it's really kind of exquisite when you think about it. How what she is doing is attempting to keep an equilibrium that we as human beings and just the natural order of things at the moment is often unbalancing the energy. So I like to think of us as a warmer globe as a result of the rise in carbon dioxide. And we know that carbon dioxide acts to create a greenhouse effect. That's what keeps the warmth close here, doesn't allow it to escape into the stratosphere or the troposphere. So it stays right on top of us. And until we address that problem, we are going to probably see it get worse rather than better. And I've seen some really great ideas about how to deal with this, right? In the short term. I read an article, I think this was in Nature magazine, so it's a scientific magazine, peer-reviewed, about creating algae farms through big pools out in the deserts, where there's space out, where the algae, which is a carbon sink, they draw carbon out of the air, and that would help to force down the carbon dioxide load in the atmosphere, releasing more oxygen. So this is such a complex subject, and to see people just try to bat it around like it's just some, buzzword for the year is ridiculous, right? It makes my heart sick. And, the thing isn't that I want to blame humans or blame us for doing it, but the thing is we know better, right? We have better ways of doing things that aren't so negative of an impact on the globe, right? On the Earth, on our atmosphere. So why not use those things, right? I heard somebody disparaging the Green Deal the other day that Ocasio-Cortez was bringing up. Now, to me, if we can get away from the politics of this, what she's basically saying is it's time to retool everything that we're doing to rebuild the infrastructure in this country, and albeit all the other countries around the world are probably facing the same thing, to be more earth friendly. And it puts people to work. And the only reason it isn't being done is because the oil companies are really holding a chokehold on their profits, right? Which are all based in bringing up oil, which is dependent on all of us burning fossil fuels in our cars and in our factories, etc. So, if you follow the money trails lead to big corporations strangleholding legislation and the politics of a country. And then we have to get past that. We have got to get past that because it makes sense to do something. And, unfortunately, we've seen a lot of rollbacks on environmental protections and on money that goes to grants and so forth to create new technologies, earth-friendly, green technologies. So giving you a lot to think about here, right? If you get out of the politics, it makes sense because the Mother Earth here is showing us that she's sick, right? And just like your body would do if you were sick. So there you go. Natasha says, thanks for the hint. Boy, I just engaged with my DNA and what new upgrades it was bringing in. This is an interesting feeling. Exactly. You know why? Because you're bringing in more and more light. That's the key. How much more light can you bring in to your DNA? How much more are you willing to allow in? How much more light into your life? And your DNA is a transducer of light. In other words, it's attractive to the light. Light is attracted to your DNA. And when light comes into the DNA, it doesn't just stay in the DNA, it moves through your DNA and back out into the world. So it creates this flow of growth and evolution and an upgrade, if you will, to your system. As Natasha says, upgrade. I love that. Bye, Debbie. Off to get her grandson or grandchildren. I'm not sure if it's a grandson, grandchild, grandson. There you go. We'll have fun. And wherever you are in the world, be safe. Mimi, the Green Deal is a resolution, a starting place to work from. I love it. ACO has a bit of positive Eris energy. She is definitely an Eris character. And I sit back and just wonder, she's 29 years old. As she matures, oh my gosh, she is just at her first Saturn return. She is kicking the patriarchy in the ass and she is saying, move along, little doggy, right? Come clean, get transparent, do something new. She has that youthful Aries energy about her. Remember that question that Rebecca asked us? She's not the Aquarian rebel, she's the Aries rebel. But we start the astrological year with Aries for a reason, right? They dare to do what other people won't do. They dare to say what other people won't say. So it's kind of an interesting energy that she brings to us here in the US. I don't know if our listeners around the world know who she is, but she is like a Mars match, right? She's lighting the flame to many different things, and in a way still immature in what she's doing, but you gotta love her moxie for getting out there and saying, things that other people are afraid to say, standing up to the patriarchy. I just about croaked the other day when she was talking to senators. Oh, and I mean the meme, the recording that went around Facebook of how she was answering these, stodgy men types, right? The old guard, and but we need a balance of both, right? It takes both. That's what I always have to try to keep in mind. Anne says, "Amen to that." We can't afford not to be earth friendly these days. Absolutely, yeah, absolutely. It makes me ill when I think of people that just think that the earth and all of her resources are there for their edification, for their profit. I am on absolutely the wrong planet, I'm sure, because in my mind, all of this is falsely created as a way to make people rich, to empower people through money. And there's a big problem with that. I'm on the wrong planet. I'm coming to a different planet next time, one that is utopian. And I would much rather have that than all of this crap that we have here. Or at least that's what I think today. Tomorrow it might be a different story. Lynn, card 51 says, follow your heart. I am not here to lead you. I am here to initiate you. It is time to step off the beaten track. Release everything you've ever been taught and embrace a new way of being. There is no way to avoid fear. If you want to transcend fear, move through it. Honor your creative impulses wherever they take you. Let your awe-filled heart lead you back to your own heart. Good fortune is inevitable when you trust the love inside of you. That is awesome. Thank you, Lynn, so much for sharing that. Debbie says she is new and her ideas are a starting point. However, she doesn't do her research. She's 29 years old. She is starting out. She's at least causing us to have that conversation, which is absolutely great, right? Aries is not the sign of research. It is the sign of lighting the match and getting things started. But there are plenty of scientists and people who are out there doing the research. They know what is going on. They've been telling us what's going on, but the money refuses to listen, and therein lies the problem. So think about that, guys. So I think that's it that I have to say today. Anybody have any questions before I go? Let's see, tomorrow is Wednesday the 13th. And tomorrow we'll probably talk about what's it going to look like with Mars in Taurus. And then the next big move is going to be Chiron out of out of Pisces and into Aries. So that'll be fun too. So we have lots of things to talk about over the next couple of days. Next week, is it next week? Hold the phone a minute, because some exciting things are coming up. It is the week of the 19th. That'll be next week. And I say the week of the 19th just because the Human Design Week that week starts on the 19th, where the sun moves into the gate of abundance, the gate 55. So we'll talk about what's that going to be bringing to us as well. Shall we do a card? Well, we did do a card, and if you guys want, my cards are over here. Let me go grab them. We had the gate 50 or the wisdom card. Oh God, I can't think of the name of that deck, but hold on. I'll grab my oracle cards over here. Oh, I just knocked the whole pack of them over. Oh, interesting. Wisdom of Avalon fell out. Maybe I should have grabbed that one. So let's say, Debbie, that's a good point too, Debbie. What's funny about that, Debbie? Debbie Tibbetts, TT, says 80%. I don't know where you're getting your numbers because I've never heard that number, and I watch this, so I'd love to see your source for that. Says that core Earth samples show we're not in global warming, but headed to an ice age that causes crazy weather issues. Interestingly enough, Debbie, back in the 80s, maybe even the 70s, the scientist who started this whole idea of the coming ice age is the same scientist who later reversed himself and began the whole idea of global warming. But if you look at the science, it is global warming that triggers the ice age, right? We are at the end of the last ice age. And this isn't happening tomorrow, so don't panic. We're not going to be in the ice age like tomorrow, but literally following on the heels of global warming is sort of the symptom of a coming ice age. So maybe we can mediate all of that by being good to our environment. Rebecca says, can you guide me to a source that explains a little more about the correlation between our DNA and human design? It's so fascinating. Yes, I can, sweetie. The Gene Keys, Richard Rudd, Unlocking the Higher Purpose Hidden in Your DNA, right? That is, the cover of the book will not look like this. This is an older cover. I've had mine for mucho years now. So look it up. Gene Keys by Richard Rudd, R-U-D-D. And the very beginning of the book tells a lot about what's going on. This is not a book you read cover to cover, though. Let me just warn you. This is a book of contemplation. What I always recommend to people is start with your sun, the sun, wherever it is, whatever gate it is at. After you read the intro to the book, find that one. It'll tell you what your place is in the sort of grand evolutionary scheme of consciousness here on the planet. So that's the book that I would start with for you. And let me just warn you, it is every time I pick that book up and I read something, I find something new. So it's as holographic as it can be. right? Your whatever level you're resonating at, you're going to pull that part out of the context or the writing. And so I find it to be sort of a magical, a magical book that way. So I think it's the best way for us to start really delving into what is it that our DNA is doing. So let's see, who was it that wanted me to pull a card? Okay, Janet, wondering if you can talk about Uranus being in your sun, moon, or ascendant on one of the shows. You may have already talked about this. If so, disregard. So are you talking about Uranus? You're talking about the transiting Uranus, right? So for example, and Debbie, I hope you don't mind if I pick on you for a minute. In Debbie's chart, the sun is at 3 degrees of Taurus in her 5th house of love and romance and pleasure and fun and creativity and joy. Well, natal Uranus, of course, sitting there means transiting Uranus is coming up to meet it. And when that happens, surprising things get triggered. Is it surprising love? Is it surprising creative impulse? Is it some kind of shocking, thing that's pleasurable and joyful for Debbie, right? Because I just happen to know her chart. Whatever the planet is that Uranus is coming up to, and its characteristics are going to be how things play out. If Uranus is coming up to Mercury, for example, you may have this brilliant aha idea, or there may be a shocking conversation that you're drawn into. There, you may have a moment of brilliance if you're a writer, for example, and you just sit down and you pen out the great novel of the decade. It's that kind of energy. So depending on the planet, it depends on what it will trigger for you. But it will definitely trigger something, right? It doesn't just, Uranus, I think of as doesn't take any prisoners, in that it is shaking you. It is releasing, wherever there are chains that have you bound, its job is to release you from it. So if you've been in writer's block and Uranus comes along to your 3rd house, maybe, or like I said, Mercury, or even your own natal Uranus, you may suddenly have an explosion of ideas and writer's block is freed. So it can be really, really good. If you have the sun there, the sun is the full force of your personality. You may be so filled with excitement and taking action on things, and where life opens up for you like an oyster. Sometimes people with the sun conjunct Uranus are comedians, right? They somehow just shine brightly, and we resonate with them. We resonate with what that energy is that they're putting out. And what's the other planet you said? The moon or your ascendant. Ascendant would mean big things coming, right? Because what's triggering you is a release from your old viewpoints. If it's crossing your ascendant, if it's crossing your moon, then it's about emotions. You may have emotional connections to people that break, or that, come in closer, or that upset you in some way. So lots of planets there, lots of planets that can create issues for or that Uranus can create issues with. So, but good things. Sometimes, I think sometimes we get so caught up in being stuck that we view change as a bad thing, and it's not, right? It's not. Change is good for us. And if we greet it consciously and with open heart and an open mind, then we can see where it might lead us and move that way, right? But that doesn't mean we have to throw the baby out with the bathwater either. That's never a good option either. So for Anne, I think it was you, Anne, that asked if I was going to pull a card. Let's do it. Let's pull an animal that's going to take us through the week and support us on this wild. It's a bit wild. I love the idea that there's a bit of a wild streak to the week, kind of the unsuspecting, like what kind of excitement can we get? And I bring up, wow, that's interesting. Snake spirit, time to heal. And I brought up dolphin spirit. It fell out with it upside down. And dolphin spirit says, this and that are true. And we've got card 20 and card 55. Whoa, 55. And that's funny because we have the gate 55 coming up next week. So let's see what we have for ourselves here in the spirit deck. We have, first one out was gate 55. Gate 55 was the card 55, which is snake. And it says, all of us need healing at times. And when snake spirit appears, it is time to repair, renew, and replenish yourself and your vulnerable heart. Self-care and maintenance work are needed so that your vitality can arise. Give yourself the space to nourish your own well-being. Vulnerability is necessary for friendships and partnerships to work, which means all of us will have tender emotions at times. Be gentle with yourself and others now. Shed the past and step into a new way of being, for vitality is rising in you. This might be a good time to honor the work you have done to heal, grow, and repair any damage within you, within those you care about, and within your community. Celebrate together how far all of you have come in your healing journey and all that you have created. Unburden yourself of anything that no longer supports wellness, prosperity, positive relationships, and well-being, and open the doors for healing to occur. I know we've had snake before, so there's our snake. Dolphin, we've not had before, and dolphin was in protection. So let's see, that was card 20. There we go. So dolphin spirit says, this and that are true. In protection, it says, when you most want to be acknowledged as right and see other ways as wrong, dolphin spirit appears as a reminder that the story of your suffering and righteousness is a little more complicated than you are admitting right now. Do you want to see things in black and white and be rigid in your ideas of what's correct and what is not? Release your rigidity and embrace the fluidity of life as you recognize the grays that remind you there are two sides to every story, an upside to each downside and a blessing in every challenge. What you think is wrong may end up being right for you. So let dolphin spirit soften your heart so that you make the best decision at this time, playing with the possibilities that present themselves. Cool cards. Love it. Love it. All right. Well, that's it for me this morning, guys. Let's see any last things here. Rebecca, oh, fantastic. Thank you. You're most welcome. Colleen says the bottom line is our planet is sick. Bees, trees, frogs, butterflies, some birds dying off at alarming rates. Pay attention to our neighborhood. It is obvious. What caused global warming before the last ice age? Runaway greenhouse effect, right? From volcanoes spewing tons of carbon dioxide, methane out into, and hydrosulfides out into the atmosphere. We don't have as many volcanoes as the Earth once did blowing off, but that's what promoted it last time, Debbie, to answer your question. And I'm sure there were a myriad of other things going on. For one thing, we did not have the number of trees that, are pulling oxygen or pulling carbon dioxide out of the air. And, what's funny now is we're cutting down trees so fast, clearing rainforests, that we are almost like cutting off our nose to spite ourselves by doing things like that. So what else do we have? And John, yes, a million times yes. I have had a novel just pouring out of me like never before. That's awesome. Good morning, Kathy Miller. Snake sounds like me lately. Very cool cards. Thanks, Janet. Have a lovely day. Terry, love you. I love you too. And I will see you all tomorrow morning, where we'll take up some other interesting subjects, I'm sure. Until then, have a great day. Remember, be safe, be careful, be aware of your surroundings, enjoy your ahas, epiphanies, and revelations, and check in with me tomorrow morning, and let's see what's happening with you guys. All right. Love you all. Talk to you later. Bye.